Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Rosendahl. Tonight we'll be debating whether or not we should raise the federal minimum wage to at least $10. Before we begin, I'd like to establish a little bit of background information about the minimum wage. It was established in 1938 at the behest of Franklin Delano Roosevelt as an arm of the way to break America out of the Great Depression. It was established at 25 cents an hour. Our significance claim is that the current federal minimum wage at $7.25 an hour is not enough to sustain a single person in any state in the United States. Our inherency claim tonight is that the federal minimum wage cannot support even the most basic, most bare bones lifestyle. And finally, our solution to this is to simply raise the federal minimum wage. Now, back in 1938, 25 cents had roughly $17 worth of spending power. If I went to Starbucks, that would equate to roughly 3 Frappuccinos, venti sized. The minimum wage currently is $7.25 an hour. It's not enough in real wages to pay for anything. Real wages, of course, meaning wages adjusted for inflation and your gross take-home salary at the end of every pay period. Now, first and foremost, the federal minimum wage has failed to keep up with inflation. It simply has. We have grown approximately $3 in real spending power since 1938. That's the way it is. The minimum wage in 1968 was $1.60, which is equivalent to $11.16 in January of 2016, and which is 53.9% higher than today's $7.25 federal minimum wage. This is according to the minimum wage discussion on procon.org, a news facilitation that weighs the various pros and cons of any issue. Now, what does this mean? This means that in 1968, you had approximately 53% more purchasing power than you do today, even if the minimum wage was lower. Now, this means that the current minimum wage is not on par with inflation. And that means that although we as a society have deemed it important to support everyone, we are failing in this most basic aspect. My second point tonight is that too few states actually have a minimum wage. According to Jackson Brainerd on the study of state minimum wages in 2018 by state, 20 states and Puerto Rico and American Samoa either only have the federal minimum wage or have no minimum wage at all. Of these states, there is either $7.25 an hour, or in Oklahoma specifically, if you work as a waiter or a waitress, legally, the restaurant you work for only has to pay you $2.30 an hour, and the rest of that gap between the $2.30 and the $7.25 is covered in tips. But if you don't make the tips, then they don't necessarily have to pay you. So you see the dilemma here. And one of the most important aspects of this is that we expect minimum wage jobs to be the entry level, right? That's the ethos. You work at McDonald's when you're 16 and you learn how to handle money, you learn how to deal with people. But the sad reality is that there are no more jobs available to people after that McDonald's step. You go from McDonald's to a factory job to build cars for Ford or for Chevy. You go from McDonald's to school and you learn how to do well in school, and you enter academia. You pursue a career after your degree. But the sad reality is that there are not enough jobs to sustain that, and that minimum wage jobs have become the new factory jobs. Minimum wage jobs have become the new status quo, per se. Walmart is the largest employer in the United States, and that, in and of itself, is a sad reality. According to procon.org on the same discussion of minimum wage, in no state can an individual working a typical 40-hour work week at the federal minimum wage afford a 1- or 2-bedroom apartment for his or her family. And this takes into account even the roughest of neighborhoods with the lowest housing costs. There simply is no way to sustain you and your loved ones on a minimum wage job, which, as we've discussed earlier, is the new status quo. I'm a minimum wage worker. I imagine many of us here are minimum wage workers. We're lucky enough to live in California where the minimum wage is $11 an hour, and even then, a lot of us still struggle to make ends meet. I think one of the most telling examples of this is from Tans and Ludenbach's How Much Money You Need to Make to Live Comfortably in the 25 Biggest Cities in America from Business Insider in 2017. According to her research, to live comfortably in New York City, you need to have an income of $86,446. The real income of New York City residents, on average, is $53,373. That's about a $33,000 gap in money needed to live even comfortably, following the rule of percentages, where you spend 50% of your income on necessities, you spend 30% on stuff that you like, and 20% you save. You need $86,000 to live that way in New York City. In Los Angeles, a little closer to home for us, you need $76,047 to live following that 50-30-20 rule. In actuality, the average income for people in the Los Angeles area is $50,205. About $26,000 is missing there. Now, admittedly, I'm not the best at math, but I'm pretty sure 76,000 is a little bigger than 50,000. And just to kind of hammer home my point a little bit, to live comfortably in San Francisco following the same 50-30-20 rule, you need about $110,000 a year. Anyone want to take a stab at what the real income in San Francisco on average is?
$60K?
A little higher than that, actually. It's $81,000. That's still a $30,000 gap in housing costs. As a country that purports to support their people, how can we say we do that when in the same breath we say that people only deserve to make $7.25 an hour, at least?